Hey guys, we're back with top 4 and we're jumping right into the game. Our players are basically ready with their setup, and yeah, on the other side of top 4 we have Robin Schulz against Alessandro Camascoli. Some of you probably watched it yesterday already, we featured this, and it was not pretty. It was like a very quick series for Alessandro, so we decided to stream Gustavo again, even though we had him last round already. But I hope you're looking forward to this, because Gustavo Wada versus Pedro Torres is not a match you can watch any day.
Yeah, and let me say hello to the stream as well. My name is Barish, and I joined Philip for this round since Lida's taken one run off. Really excited. We finished VG, so I came over to cast
exactly.
TCG
Barish
with
is
you guys.
the VG head judge usually, but he also plays TCG. He just made top 8 at the Professor Cup, so he kind of knows what he's talking about. And yeah, he will be joining me this round. As we see this almost mirror match, both players are actually playing the Zapdos Jolteon deck. There's some differences. You've seen Gustavo's deck here on stream just now. We've seen Pedro's deck yesterday. So Pedro does not play a Pikachu Zekrom. Gustavo has it as a one-off in his list. And yeah, there are also other changes like the energy switch. I don't think Pedro plays something like that. Also, Pedro's playing a very high Faulkner count, and we see an Acerola on Gustavo's prizes. So Pedro on the other side is playing a max potion. So both of these players have a few tricks up their sleeves. Their lists aren't quite the standard that we used to see in Melbourne, where like the completely straight Zapdos Jirachi deck won the entire tournament. No, those players have decided to take their deck, and yeah, Gustavo's starting off with a pretty strong turn 1, having the Jirachi in the opening.
Yeah, plays down all his cards and then goes for that Cynthia to get another new 6 cards, so that is a lot of cards in play just in his first turn. Another point about his price cards, I think his Stadium's price as well, which could be important for attacking early on with both Zapdos, Angelus, or Pika Zekrom. Yeah,
the Thunder Mountain is a pretty nice card for these decks, but as both players play Lightning deck and both focus on Zapdos and Jolteon, so these very energy efficient attackers, the Thunder Mountain will probably not be too huge. However, it is a nice card, and not having it at his disposal might hurt Gustavo. And here we see the Let Loose Marshadow again.
Oh, wow.
He did a brave play with it last game, almost costing him a deck. Seeing Adam stumble a bit with his opening Pokemon, he used it turn 1 just to make it even harder for him. And he then had quite a struggle for a few turns, not drawing very well and being punished by his own Marshadow, turning it into a very close game. However, this time he's not afraid, he's doing it again, going first.
The interesting part is that he hasn't used the ability of Jirachi yet.
Yeah, also an important thing is that he has the Jirachi active. Like last game, he did not have Jirachi. If I'm not mistaken, I wasn't casting that one, so I'm not 100% sure. But having the Marshadow with the Jirachi is of course much stronger, because now he can use the Stellar Wish ability to find the supporter for next turn, and he has decent odds of not getting knocked out, because Pedro only has 4 cards at his disposal.
Yeah, but we saw that one of those 4 cards was Lily. So if he plays down some cards and can play his Lily this turn, he goes up to 8 cards and then hopefully come back into this game, since he only has his Eevee so far.
Drawing the clean Lily off the Marshadow Let Loose is of course a huge thing. And yeah, on Gustavo's side we also see the Absol, a common tech. I feel like I've talked about it all weekend.
Oh, and no energy of the Lily. Sorry to interrupt you there.
And yeah, can't quite make out what exactly Pedro has to work with. He has an Eevee in his active position, so he can attach an energy, evolve it into Jolteon, and use it to attack. But no, he only uses a switch, puts up his Jirachi, and yeah, getting rid of the switch can hurt him later on, because he doesn't play that many switching options, and especially as his escape boards are rendered relatively useless for the time being because of his Absol. Pedro might have a harder time getting this Jirachi out of the active position. It might end up being stuck there.
Yeah.
However,
I think there was no energy in his hand actually to use that energy evolution ability. He gets a Ultra Ball though. Hopefully he draws into more cards to hopefully evolve this turn. Another switching option is gone with that Ultra Ball though.
Oh yeah, another Guzma gone, a Choice Band gone, and yeah, whiffing an energy of course is really not what Pedro wants to see. However, putting a GX on the board is also not completely optimal. On the other side, Gustavo, he's just going aggressive. He's going for his Jolteon right away, having this this strong attacker almost ready to go. And yeah, we've seen the Zapdos deck focus on non-GX Pokemon, focus on Pokemon that like are very efficient, that they use your Zapdos, take little knockouts just to take prizes. The Zapdos usually get knocked out all the time, but the Jolteon, however, is a bit bulkier, it is a bit trickier, it's not as straightforward as the Zapdos, and it can stay on the board. So charging up with Jolteon means that he will have a consistent threat on this board. Also, having the Absol with Escape Board in the active already means that he is very likely to get an attack going next turn and already take the prize lead. Meanwhile, this Absol seems to be preventing Pedro from taking a KO either. Oh, also he does not have energy.
Yeah, so it looks like he played a second Jirachi, so even if his active Jirachi gets knocked out this turn, he has a second one to use the ability draw into the supporter. That's important to set up his board, because currently he only has 2 Jirachi and 2 Eevee, so no pressure at all on field for
Yes, exactly. Pedro, not only did he not go first, so usually going second means that you get this first attack, and this makes those lightning mirrors so tricky, because you want to go first on the one side because you want to set up your board, you want to make sure that you don't miss a beat later on, but on the other side it's always a two-edged sword, because if you go second you get the first knockout, and these decks are designed to take a prize lead and then to keep it. But Gustavo not only went first, but Pedro also missed the attack, so Gustavo has everything going in his favor. He has the prize lead, he has a Jolteon ready, maybe he can use the GX attack later on to even further expand on that.
And finally there's the energy evolving, being able to get his own Jolteon out. The question is, does he have any drawing support or any switching options here to get into this game and start attacking as well?
Yeah, exactly. This will be the important things. It's probably very likely that he has a supporter, considering that he used a Lily last turn and he didn't get much of it. So those cards have to be something, and usually when you can't use your cards, they are supporters and you have already played one. Especially in these types of deck that play such a high amount of items, such a high amount of utility cards, having an unplayable hand with a lot of cards usually means a lot of supporters. So Pedro's considering his options. A nice thing for him is that the Zapdos has a lightning weakness, so with just one electro power, Pedro would be able to take a knockout and maybe soften up Gustavo's Jolteon as well, sniping 30 on it, putting it at 180 and quite into the reach of a Zapdos knockout.
Easy and late game,
knockout
of course.
with Jolteon or Zapdos.
Yeah, another play would be playing out the stadium and then being able to go for the 110 attack. You wouldn't need any electro power in that case.
Yes, exactly.
But I think I saw the stadium in his last Stellar Wish draws, and he went for the Ultra Ball, so he doesn't have it on his hand right now. Goes for Portman though. Let's see what he gets next to his energy. What would be a good item right now?
He will probably get a switching card or an electro power, and depending on if he already has one of those pieces. Otherwise, this might turn into a very sad game for Pedro. If he doesn't get the knockout this turn, it means that he will probably fall behind 2 prizes, and well, those lightning decks usually don't even give up a 1 prize lead. So a 2 prize lead will be incredibly hard for him to come back from.
Yeah. That's the Jirachi on the field at the moment. If that gets knocked out, and then the Eevee afterwards, like does he want to evolve that Eevee to preserve it from getting knocked out early in the game, or is this second GX Pokemon on the field probably too much for?
It doesn't really matter to. If the Eevee is probably not the preferred target for Gustavo right now, as Pedro only has 1 Jirachi on the board. So if he's gonna Guzma some small guy, it will certainly be the Jirachi. And yeah, so evolving the Eevee doesn't really matter too much. Also, as he already has 1 GX, the second one doesn't matter, and he does play the Max Potion. So actually evolving the Eevee into Jolteon would maybe be something that Pedro wants, because a thing that those lightning decks often use is Escape Rope to switch out your opponent's active, get something easier to knock out in the active, which would be the case here. And if he had the Jolteon, he could just send it up, heal off the damage that Gustavo would deal to it with Max Potion, and this way come back into this prize field. However, Pedro really whiffing the knockout here, and Gustavo retaliating with this Guzma, expanding on his lead. Now Gustavo has such a strong board advantage, And yeah, basically the only thing that's in Pedro's favor here is the fact that this Jolteon of Gustavo is already damaged. So it might be possible for Pedro to go for a turn where he Guzmas it up, attaches a second energy, uses 3 damage modifiers to reach 200 damage.
Knockout,
and
take 2 prizes and then come back into this game.
30 damage don't matter too much, but if Gustavo were to use Thunder Mountain, no, actually, the 30 damage matter a lot. Of course, it's 1 damage modifier less.
Yeah, it's like
my bad. It's 2 damage modifiers for Pedro. So getting a Guzma and a knockout with a GX attack is still a possibility. It would even up the price count, and it would open up the possibility that Gustavo doesn't have a way to remove that Jolteon from the active position, so that Pedro would even up the price count and maybe even get the turn advantage afterwards.
Okay, how did he switch these two?
The Jolteon just has free retreat, so he probably just retreated into the Jirachi, promoting the Jolteon of course because free retreat match better than the Eevee. Setting out Jirachi to get something more. He might, if he can go for a Guzma, that's certainly something he wants to do. Alternatively, he can just switch, use Jolteon's first attack, take a knockout this time, and soften the Gustavo's Jolteon up even further.
So he only needs 1.
Exactly, but then he's of course risking that Gustavo this time has the knockout himself, because he already has a choice band on his Jolteon, so it's already dealing 140. He has been building up his hand for a while, he has a decent board, he would get another Stellar Wish ability for free, and getting 2 Electro Powers is really not too much asked.
Yeah, especially with Stellar Wish, of course. Interesting to see that Pedro went for the max potion there, so there was either no further... Oh, okay, we see the Guzma play.
And there's the Guzma, but Pedro making a sad expression here. Does not look like he has what he wants to.
Do we
but
see 1, 2?
Oh yeah, we see both Electro Powers, so yeah, Pedro has the play to come back into this game. He will take a knockout on this Jolteon, will probably use his GX attack as well. He might want to conserve it. Actually, that he's taken the max potion means that he might very well not use the GX attack, saving it for later.
But he goes for that GX attack.
But yeah, he does.
Actually.
He's valuing that safety. He's valuing that Jolteon, his only attacker currently, and the energy is on it more than he does his GX attack.
Yeah, especially without the stadium, and we haven't seen... Does Pedro play Tapu Koko Prism?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Tapu Koko Prism and Tapu Koko GX are extremely versatile and extremely strong cards that are basically featured in every Lightning deck.
Yeah, I was debating if Max Potion play will be worth it, because he has to power up his Jolteon to be able to attack again without the stadium. So that's 2 energies he would have to play next turn.
Yes, but of course he can use Zapdos as well. He plays 3 or 4, so he has them at his disposal. And if he were to take the price advantage, and going for Zapdos is certainly something he can do to draw his last prize. And Gustavo's putting down the Pikachu Zekrom, starting to power it up. He by now has gotten his Thunder Mountain out of the prizes. He also has his Tapu Koko Prism still on the bench. So this Pikachu Zekrom, one of tech that Gustavo plays, is turning into a huge threat already. Pedro also not having his GX attack anymore to hide behind it, not having the GX attack of Tapu Koko GX at his disposal to punish those huge amount of energies that Pikachu Zekrom brings into play, might have a lot of struggle to deal with it.
And he plays down his Aurora GX and his Absol, filling up his bench there with 2 spots.
Finally getting out with Absol means a lot for Pedro, because he now finally starts to shut down Gustavo's ability a little bit. It makes it a bit harder for Gustavo to get everything he wants to, and maybe Pedro can this way get into an advantageous state again. However, Gustavo only needs 2 damage modifiers here, which is not that much asked. He probably has the Thunder Mountain in his hand. However, he doesn't need it because he has the Tapu Koko Prism, and he can just use that, attach an energy from his hand, so he gets
150 damage. I don't think we have seen any Electro Powers played from Gustavo yet.
Yeah, he usually went for the small knockouts on Jirachis and stuff like that. So he certainly has lots and lots of damage modifiers left in his deck. So if he only can get 2 of those, also he needs a switching card here, so the Zapdos coming in handily. But Gustavo having a huge amount of cards in his hand, it seems very unlikely that he will with the attack here. And Pedro is really on the back foot here. He probably wants to avoid... Oh.
He goes for the Tapu Koko.
Yes.
Where went the damage though?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure what happened to the damage. Did he play something like a potion maybe? I mean, most players are surely aware of the damage on their Pokemon, because those 30 damage can matter a lot. 240 HP is just so tanky, and if Gustavo is able to take the knockout here, but no damage modifier. Oh, actually yes, he seems to have played 2 Electropos that were just off camera, so he gets the knockout, goes down to 1.
He went for the Jax attack.
Oh, the GX attack. Oh, right, okay. Now I see.
That makes sense. The 200 damage here to pick up the clean KO. Only 2 energies attached, so no 170 damage on top of that. But it was enough to take 2 prizes, being down to 1 last prize, which I think is an Electro Power here.
This also means that he is saving. That he is saving his damage modifiers that he can use. Oh, okay, he used Acerola to remove,
pick it up,
to pick
put it down
up,
again,
put it back down.
Tapu Koko for 1 extra energy,
exactly,
Stadium,
and the
then
Thunder Mountain. That makes sense. And yeah, this Thunder Mountain, however, means that Pedro will be able to use Zeraora's attack as well, but it only deals 160 damage. So getting all the way up to 240 is a lot asked. It's 3 damage modifiers, and Pedro has already used quite a few of them.
So he retreats, uses Stellar Wish. Let's see if he gets any modifiers here.
If I'm not mistaken, Pedro has used 2 Electro Powers. I don't think he used any earlier, because he just attacked with Jolteon on 60-30. So he probably still has 2 Electro Powers, but he needs both of those and Choice Band, so that's a lot asked. He's using Jirachi to dig for it.
He goes for that switch option though.
And he's going for Cynthia. Oh, Pedro needs a lot of the Cynthia, otherwise Gustavo will be able to just play a Guzma, promote with Absol, retreat it, and attack with the Zekrom again to take his last prize.
Yeah, we see how important this Tag Team GX mechanic is, that he can draw up to 3 prizes right now, even though he's like down 2 prizes, like more so Gustavo's lead of 2 prizes. But with this Tag Team GX on the field and now potential of 2 extra modifiers of 3, he will pick up the KO and then win this game, even though he was...
Yes. He might be able to do that, but it seems very unlikely at this point, and Gustavo probably gonna take the game next turn. He just needs 2 damage modifiers or a Guzma, and yeah, Pedro's just attacking, and Gustavo having a lot of cards in his hand. Uses his Tapu Lele, which Pedro doesn't even play, such as the Guzma, promotes some of one of Pedro's easy to knock out Pokemon. Gonna promote his own Absol. Absol.
Since Pedro has a Absol
exactly.
as well.
Retreats the Absol, knocks it out, and takes game 1.
In a very commanding fashion. That was really strong. That was a very strong turn 1 there for Gustavo.
Yeah, Gustavo had a very strong start. He really capitalized on going first. He managed to set his board up properly. He just managed to establish a very strong board, and meanwhile Pedro was whiffing energies, whiffing attacks, not getting these knockouts. Gustavo was able to go ahead, even though Pedro had this one turn where he had Guzma and 3 damage modifiers, 2 damage modifiers. always forgetting it was 30 for some reason, but yeah, getting those 2 damage modifiers to almost get back into the game. Gustavo was still able to charge up his Pikachu Zekrom later on and get the knockout with it and close out the game with it. This one of tech really paying off in this series.
Yeah, like the Pikachu Zekrom GX, if your opponent is down to 2 or 3 prizes, you can play it down easily. Yeah. Because at that point late in the game, it doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, we've seen some crazy comebacks with tag teams over the weekend, where we had Carl Blake, whose opponent was down to 1 prize, and he used the Gengar Mimikyu in the Malamon deck to put up a big wall with a ton of HP to come back into the game and take 2 knockouts with it.
I was actually talking to Pedro after his sub 8 game, and he said in the mirror he actually prefers to go first, even though he can't attack that.
Going first seems like a reasonable thing. We've seen it pay off for Gustavo so much in the first game. Pedro was struggling so much to keep up while Gustavo had a commanding position. He had so many cards in his hand and he seemed to virtually be able to do whatever he likes. So Pedro will probably opt to go first here. He doesn't want to be in this pressure situation where he might be the pacemaker of the game but is struggling to keep up with those KOs turn after turn. He prefers to go first.
I mean, and 2 mulligans definitely will
set up
help
his board.
him.
And yes, exactly, those mulligans might come in big. 2 extra cards is always huge, and it might even get more, depending on what Gustavo draws here. But yeah, Gustavo has a basic, and yeah, he forgets about the prize cam, but the judge reminds him, thankfully. So we will see his prizes. Looks like quite a few energy and his absolute surprise. This might free energy actually in his prizes. He doesn't play that many, he plays 11, so he still has plenty to work with, but not that much anymore.
Yeah, it's
and the absolute prizes might actually come in huge because we've seen how disruptive it can be, right? I mean, in this matchup it doesn't matter that much as in the straight Zapdos mirror because it only works in basic Pokemon, and Pedro has the Jolteon with free retreat as a stage 1.
The interesting part is though, even though Absol is priced for Gustavo, on the other side for Pedro he has 2 Jirachi priced. So if he loses one of his Jirachis early, he might not have access to Stellar Wish later in the game until he draws those Jirachis from his prizes.
However, 2 Jirachi priced, and he has this 3rd ready disactive. A perfect start from Pedro so far, having the Jirachi, having 2 extra cards, going first, going for this nest ball right away, checking his prizes, figuring out what he has to work with. And honestly, those 2 Jirachis might become a consistency issue, but usually players only play a very high amount to draw into them early, and Pedro has managed to do just that. So he will have access to the Stellar Wish ability to his liking. He has a nest ball, going for that Eevee straight away.
With an energy, using his ability straight away.
Doing it just as Gustavo did. Doing it just as Gustavo did last turn. Powering up with Jolteon early. Not going for Zapdos or anything like that. No, he wants this Jolteon early. It is his main attack. He commanded a lot of space to it, and he's won here, and he wants to use it.
Yeah, and his first turn is far away from being over yet. He just played the nest ball so far.
Yeah.
No supporter yet. Still has a lot of cards in his hand. So let's see what's going on. He's going for Stellar Wish.
Trying to play down a few more cards, seeing if he can get a supporter for turn. He might already have one. I mean, the odds that he's whiffing a supporter with 2 mulligans and a Stellar Wish ability is very low. Getting a Guzma ready for next turn.
And
playing a Faulkner.
We'll probably see another nest ball here to play another.
Yeah, we might see a nest ball, we might see something like an escape, but however, escape what seems rather unlikely. The Jirachi is that it is serious danger of getting knocked out, so a nest ball seems like an unlikely option. Just to develop his board even further. Maybe get out Absol to disrupt Gustavo early on. Maybe go for something like a Zapdos, so he has something that he can send up off an escape rope, so that he doesn't have to get his Jolteon damaged easily.
So let's see what he's going for.
And he's taking the Absol. It seems like... yeah, he's going for Nest Ball and went for Absol, I guess.
Unfortunately,
and yeah, the Absol is, just like I mentioned, it has 100 HP as well, so it would be a decent tank to set up off escape rope. But he's opting to go for Nest Ball and a Jirachi instead, valuing this on-board consistency more than disrupting your opponent. And yeah, Gustavo has a Pikachu Zekrom in the active, so he will need something like a Switch or escape rope or a Guzma anyways. And yeah, Pedro on the other hand getting the most out of his turn, using the other Stellar Wish as well, putting an escape bot already on one of his Jirachi. So his board's looking quite well.
He went for the Nest Ball, gets another basic out. The interesting part about Pikachu Zekrom GX as a starter is that you clearly don't want to use full blitz here early in the game, because as we mentioned in the first game, your opponent can easily play out his Tapu Koko GX and then counter that.
Exactly.
So Pikachu Zekrom is not only at that spot in your active position there, you don't really want to attack with that either.
Yeah, usually you would have a way of playing around this, because Pikachu Zekrom deck with multiple Pikachu Zekrom could use one full blitz to power up another Pikachu Zekrom, then they could use full blitz to knock off the Tapu Koko, and the next turn use Tech Bolt GX to finish out the game. However, Gustavo only plays with single Pikachu Zekrom. It's more of attack than his main attacker. He's focusing on the Jolteon just as Pedro does. And yeah, so this won't happen, and he will definitely, as you said, not go for full blitz early on. He will rather take prizes with his Zapdos, with his Jolteon, try to set up knockouts, try to set up big knockouts with electro powers, try to take easy prizes, go ahead in the prize trade. And we see him go for the Zapdos here right away, and playing an Ultra Ball. No idea what he discarded, but probably cards he doesn't need, and he's going for Tapu Lele. This is of course very painful for him. This Tapu Lele being a great consistency card, but being a GX Pokemon, it's most of the time not even featured in those more Zapdos based lightning decks. However, Gustavo playing a toolbox and valuing the versatility of the one attack ability.
Yeah, especially since you don't attack with Tapu Lele in this matchup, you basically just give up one bench spot for a GX Pokemon that can get knocked out with either a lot of multipliers there.
It's not even a lot. Like facing this matchup, 170 is certainly not a lot of HP. The Jolteon being able to use an electro power and
a choice band, for example.
Yeah, for example, or like Pedro did last turn, he can prepare those knockouts with the first attack of Jolteon earlier on. So this Tapu Lele is certainly very much in reach for Pedro for a knockout. And especially later on.
Yeah, and we don't see any Jirachi in play yet for Gustavo. So there's a Doe.
Yeah, there's finally a Jirachi.
Let's see if there's any option to switch. Yeah, there's a switch on hand.
There's a switch in his hand. But he's going for the Zapdos right away, and the let loose once again. Gustavo consistently going for this option in the early turns. He, of course, brings an element of randomness into the game. However, both players have a Jirachi on their bench already, so will probably not be very disruptive, and the thing he's looking for is probably just the lightning energy, and having already used the supporter.
I mean, the stadium is out as well, so he doesn't even need the electric energy.
Oh yeah, right.
But yeah, sure, having an attachment for the turn is great.
Whiffing attachments is always painful, so he doesn't want that.
No, and I think it was another electric energy he pulled off his prizes there, having the second one in his hand. Very interesting. Once again, Gustavo in the lead with the prizes here in our semi-final.
Yes, he has the prize lead. However, Pedro has a decent board this time around, having a Jirachi with a skateboard that can use Stellar Wish for free without having the need of a switch option afterwards, because this time around Gustavo doesn't have the up, so this time around Pedro is the one that has the disruptive Pokemon on his bench. Yeah,
and what we talked about earlier in the first game is that this time he can go for Jolteon's first attack if he has one Electrifier in his hand. Pick up the KO on that Zapdos and then prepare a second KO on a Pokemon on the bench.
Yep. Alternatively, he can just, basically he can just save that Electro Power. It doesn't really matter a lot because he can just use the second attack of Jolteon, take a knockout, and if he snipes 30 now or if he uses Electro Power later, doesn't really mean a lot of difference. Both these players don't really play hand disruption, so like the one Marshadow Gustavo's deck, but it's already used. So if Pedro opts to keep an Electro Power in his hand, it will stay there.
That's very true, yeah.
And he's going for Cynthia, simply refreshing his hand, getting more Pokemon into his hand, certainly looking for a knockout on the Zapdos this turn. He already has the knockout ready on the board.
Yeah, but we saw two Electropowers in that Jirachi draw, so you got one more in his hand right now. So he has at least one multiplayer in his hand for next turn.
Yeah, he might actually opt to not even take a knockout on the Zapdos, just attacking for 60, having the Zapdos stuck in the active, knowing that Gustavo has a relatively low amount of cards in his hand. The Zapdos is quite useless as long as it's in the active, so he would need multiple switching cards to get anything going here, and he can opt to just use this 30 snipe to prepare this Pikachu Zekrom, to put damage onto it to get it softened up so he can take a knockout on it later on. But however, we see Pedro playing an Electro Power, meaning that he will take the knockout here, most likely with the Jolteon, might use the Zapdos as well, just to not get damage onto his Jolteon. Also, having this Jolteon in the active means that Gustavo will be able to take a knockout on it with either Full Blitz or the GX attack if he has one more energy, which he does. And he uses the Electro Power, meaning that he would most likely use Full Blitz. Like, definitely, he doesn't have to attach the energy, so using a GX attack doesn't have any benefit for him. He might very well not search out energies because being afraid of that Tapu Koko threat. The Tapu Koko Prism Star not being used yet of Pedro, also he doesn't even need it, he already has one energy in play. There's the Thunder Mountain.
Also the Full Blitz, Jolteon knocked out there.
Doesn't attach any energy, so goes down to 3 prizes and Pedro is far behind once again.
Yeah, Gustavo in a commanding lead here. And it doesn't look like Pedro really has an answer to that Pikachu Zekrom GX at the moment.
At least not quite yet. He can get Tapu Koko GX, is probably the strongest attacker in his deck, so 130 with the normal attack, he just needs one more energy with Tapu Koko for that. So that would put the Zekrom at 160. So still 80 off the knockout, so he needs 3 damage modifiers. However, we know... No,
he had one before and he gets the second one right now.
Already, so...
So
he might get the knockout with Tapu Koko Prisons already. Alternatively, he can just attack the Zekrom, soften it up with Zapdos. But that means that not only is he opening way for Ace the Roller play from Gustavo, and like just removing those energies from play, it also gives way for the option of Gustavo just taking a prize and then finishing it later off. But Pedro searching out the Zeraora, attaching an energy to it, so if he can use Tapu Koko Prism Star this turn, which he does, he can power it up, so all of a sudden he only needs 2 damage modifiers to take a knockout on the Zekrom. He already has one in his hand.
I think we saw that he has 2 in his hands. He picked up one earlier with Stellar Wish and he picked up the second one this turn. So we might easily... And there's a choice band as well.
So yeah, I think the one he picked up last turn he used to take a knockout with the Jolteon on the Zapdos. But he has the choice band, he has an Electro Power, he has the Tapu Koko Prism Star, powering up his Zeraora and putting an energy to the up, so being able to retaliate and... yeah, to even up the price count once again, leaving Gustavo with pretty weak board here. He will only have a Tapu Lele and the Marsh Raider, which are entirely useless. And
looks like he actually takes over the lead with only 2 prize cards left.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's not only evening up, it's also the lead. And it means that Gustavo is on the clock to retaliate here, because if he's not able to take a knockout on the Zeraora, Pedro might be able to Guzma next turn, bring up the Tapu Lele and knock it out with the Zeraora.
Yeah, because he has that choice band in play already, so he doesn't need any additional multiplier.
Yeah, so with one of Zeraora attack, putting in a lot of work for Pedro, might be able to draw 5 prizes with it in just 2 turns and win the game this way. Gustavo hasn't used his Koko Prism Star yet. He powered his Zekrom up manually, so he still has that as an option. He still has the Tapu Koko GX. He hasn't used his GX attack yet, and there are 4 energy in play for Pedro. So it means that if he gets the Koko Prism Star and the Tapu Koko GX, he can use both the abilities and the GX attack of Tapu Koko GX to take a knockout on the Zeraora. And
looks like he plays down all his hand to go for Lily, draw another 6 cards here. The question is, do we see any Tapu Koko play?
Yeah, it's probably what he's looking for. However,
he's not quite happy though, so he might not have what he needs right now.
Yeah, in this situation he might even send up the Tapu Lele. Because actually, then it would be just a switch, so there's no difference. With the high Faulkner amount and Pedro's deck, that's certainly not a good play. And yeah, he's just attacking with the Zapdos, putting Pedro in a position where he wins. If he only finds a Guzma, he can retreat his Zeraora for free thanks to the ability. He's opting to use the switch, meaning that this Jirachi has free retreat thanks to a skateboard, so he can put down a number 1, retreat into it, so he will have the option to maybe use multiple Star
and there's the Guzma play.
And Pedro Torres will even up the series, winning game 2, going to 1-1.
I think going first in this second game and Gustavo starting with that Pikachu Zekrom really helped him to get back into this game.
Going first really seems to be the play here. We've seen it pay out in both the situations, and I mean, of course, this deck has lots of tricks to come back, even if your opponent were to take prizes. And early on, Pedro has the Max Potion, Gustavo has the Acerola, they both have the Tapu Koko Prism, the Tapu Koko GX, so many tricks to even it up, even if they go second. So they certainly want the extra consistency of going first, having this one more turn to set up, to prepare board, to prepare their attackers.
And of course it helped that Gustavo never got out his Upsol to prevent
really
Pedro
helped.
from using.
On the other side, Pedro had his Upsol. This card's putting in so much work in those lightning mirrors. It's just a very powerful card. Was printed in the same set as Jirachi, obviously being a way of balancing this amazing consistency boost, because otherwise we might see super aggressive decks that just want to go second and take a knockout every turn, but this Upsol prevents it from happening, making those games way more interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, we will be seeing a game 3. 25 minutes left, so
that's enough for a game 3, I would assume.
Certainly. 25 minutes, both these players have been playing at a very reasonable pace. Gustavo is a player who typically plays quite fast and still very well, so he's a former world champion. Pedro is a former world top 4, so both very experienced players, and they are really showing their high caliber here. Being able to play that quickly, not even bricking, but still managing to probably play 3 games here.
Yeah, apparently the timer is a little bit off, and we have almost 40 minutes left in this round, which will definitely be enough for a third game here.
Yeah, so that is more than enough.
We see the
especially at the pace of stress. And Pedro opening with a Tapu Koko GX. This is like the one Pokemon he absolutely does not want to open. We've seen it in top 8. Adam opened it 1 game, Gustavo opened it 1 game. Both players lost these games where they opened it. So this Tapu Koko GX might be the losing sentence for Pedro.
We saw how Pikachu Zekrom was more or less the losing standpoint for Gustavo in the last game.
And Pedro's like, oh Jolteon, why are you not a basic?
Yeah, of course you can use Tapu Koko's ability to get any energies in play and be active and then attack here. On the other side, Gustavo's start looks quite good.
Yes. But
Goes for
however,
that Tapu.
Yeah, however, he has to use a Tapu Lele, which is always a huge disadvantage. We've seen it cost him the game in the last set, where Pedro was able to take those easy 2 prizes on it to finish out the series. It might cost him the game again, because this Tapu Koko means that Gustavo has a way of taking 2 easy prizes to close out the game, but the Tapu Lele means that Pedro can do the same.
Yeah, the interesting part here is that with Tapu Koko in play, if you take out that Tapu Koko early, and if I'm correct, then Pedro doesn't play any rescue stretch or any other way to get his Tapu Koko back.
Pretty sure he does. Like, I'm not exactly sure. We don't have his deck list at the moment, but those decks, especially with rescue stretcher being such a versatile way to get your items and your trainers at the right time, and rescue stretcher being such a powerful card, being able to get something back that you wanted to use earlier on, especially in this toolbox kind of builds, where you have all these different attackers you might want to recycle. Pretty sure Pedro's playing one, however I might be mistaken, and he might figure that it's not necessary.
Yeah, where I was going with this point was that if you get this Tapu Koko knocked out early, you can go for that Pikachu Zekrom, full blitz, boost up your Pokemon, and don't have to fear that Tapu Koko coming back at any point. But of course, there's this chance that Pedro is playing Rescue Stretcher, so and then Gustavo, a late game Tapu Koko would be very strong.
Yeah, Gustavo would certainly not want to take this risk. And he's having not the greatest turn 1, and he has the Jirachi active now. After opening with Tapu Koko Prism, however, no energy attachment from him, having to play down with Tapu Lele, so certainly not optimal. Pedro making sure that Ether Paradise is working for both players. I would assume not a very common card, but we've seen it be quite impactful against Adam. At least it sticked in game for a long time. And Pedro going for the Faulkner turn 1, not the ideal turn 1 supporter, but also not too bad. He will be able to get an energy, so he for sure won't with his energy attachment.
Probably goes for a Nest Ball to get basics out. And Jirachis would help here. Tapu Koko, Zapdos in play.
Yeah, Nest Ball is a typical card to take early. just no drawbacks, that's up your board. And he's going for Zapdos right away, so he probably has a way to switch out with Tapu Koko, and he wants to take a knockout on the Jirachi to disrupt Gustavo's stumbling start even further. Because without the Jirachi in the active, Gustavo will have something again that he does not want there. If Pedro would be able to find an Absol, it would help even more to make sure that Gustavo's not getting into this game properly. And he might just be able to recover from that slow.
Looks like there's an Ultra Ball play from Pedro, getting another basic out here in play.
Yeah, so he might go for the Absol. He might also go for Jirachi, depending on what he values more, what's in his hand. However, there's an Absol on Gustavo's side of the field, so going for Jirachi would mean that Pedro would need 2 switching cards, one to switch out the Tapu Koko, one to switch out the Jirachi, so he's going for the Absol. Seems like a very solid play in my opinion, putting a lot of pressure onto Gustavo if he can also find a switch, and yes, he has it.
And there's the first knockout.
Taking knockout on the Jirachi, taking the lead, really hurting Gustavo's board, having this Absol, getting rid of this Jirachi. This really looks like Pedro might be able to recover from that bad opener. Also, an interesting thing to note is that the Marshadow is priced, so we won't see any turn 1 or turn 2 let-loose plays. This time, we will get an entirely normal game.
Yeah, not only his Marshadow, but also his Electric Stadium is priced there.
Yeah, the Thunder Mountain can be important, but here's this Tapu Koko Prism Star, which is the more important energy acceleration. I would argue the Thunder Mountain being very nice, but as we've seen last game, it gave Pedro the opportunity to use the Zero Hour for only 2 energy and punish the Pikachu Zekrom right away. So Thunder Mountain in this matchup always a 2-edged sword, helping both players.
Yeah,
it is going for the Pikachu Zekrom. Seeing that the Tapu Koko is in play, he can actually power up the Zekrom, ignoring the Tapu Koko perhaps. However, that would mean it's a risky play because the Tapu Koko needs free energy, but if Pedro uses the Thunder Mountain, the Tapu Koko Prism Star and an energy attachment from his hand, he can power up the Tapu Koko out of nothing anyways.
Yeah, that was my point about the Electric Stadium.
Exactly.
He doesn't have it in play. He didn't have any energy in play either. So he played down 1 energy, used his Tapu Koko Prism, but he only has 2 energies and can't attack with his Pikachu Zekrom GX yet.
Yes, and he passed his turn. Pedro's early knockout, early board state advantage, let's call it like this. It's a disruptive ability, and it's a disruptive approach, knocking off his Jirachi, putting down the Absol, and it pays off. Gustavo not getting attack here, Pedro having the opportunity to race even further ahead, having the opportunity to attach an energy to the Tapu Koko, meaning that he is prepared to punish a full blitz with it if Gustavo opts to attach energies with it.
There are already 3 energies attached, which is already 150.
Also Pedro, however, not getting an attack off. Or did I see anything wrong here? No, Pedro didn't seem to attack. Well, however, looking on Gustavo's side, here's the Pikachu Zekrom in the active. He's powering it up, ready to use full blitz. 4 energies in play, however, already. So Pedro has an energy in the Tapu Koko GX already, so just needs an energy attachment and one of his Prism Stars to power it up. And then, okay, it's still a couple of damage modifiers, especially since the Eva Paradise is in play. The Pikachu Zekrom is very bulky at the moment, having 240 HP plus 30 from the Eva Paradise basically.
270 damage to do there.
Yeah, meaning
but
that
if we see the Thunder Mountain from Pedro, not only removing Ether Paradise, but also helping him to need less energies here, that could help him get up to that 240 with 2 Electro Modifiers.
Yes, and I'm not sure if I saw anything wrong, but I think Pedro had a very, very weak last time where he just attached an energy to the Tapu Koko GX and didn't even attack to avoid Ace the Roller. And so he does not seem to have any supporter, doesn't seem to have much going on. Promoting this Eevee. And yeah, really not being able to do much. He evolves it into Jolteon. However, he probably does not want to leave this Jolteon in the active position because it's an easy knockout for the Zekrom. Pikachu Zekrom.
Yeah, at this point, Pikachu Zekrom GX with his Tag Ball GX attack can easily knock out both Jolteon and the Tapu Koko. So that
here we see Faulkner from Pedro going for Nest Ball and Energy, so he will be able to attack with Tapu Koko if he wants to this turn.
Yeah, and he goes for his Tapu Koko Prism to boost up Tapu Koko even further. Tapu Koko is helping out you though there.
However, he will still be needing a lot to get a knockout this turn, and if he doesn't, this Tapu Koko GX will be very vulnerable to the Pikachu Zekrom.
Yeah, we can only suppose that Pedro has a plan there, putting down all those cards, either hoping to draw into more multipliers, or has them already in his hand. So
yeah, Pedro using the ability for the Tapu Koko, powering up his Tapu Koko GX, and might be opting to attack. He has 3 energies on it, and yes, he's going for an attack.
Let's see if
gonna deal $100 damage if he doesn't get all of those multipliers into play.
Even if he doesn't knock out the Pikachu Zekrom GX here straight away, and Gustavo doesn't have access to his Ace Roller yet, then a 2-hit knockout on this Pokemon is still great to draw 3 prizes next turn. We see that Pedro is thinking about potentially playing 1 or 2 more extra cards before he goes for that attack here. Both players ready though. It looks like Gustavo already grabbing for those dice too. He goes for that GX attack. 200 damage, no multipliers.
This means that he will probably be able to pick up the knockout on it later on, dealing 170 damage, so it's left with 70 HP plus E for Paradise. So if Pedro manages to attach an energy to his Jolteon and get Thunder Mountain, he could get a knockout next turn. But here Gustavo actually playing 2 Pikachu Zekrom, so I was mistaken about the stake list. That's my bad, and this is really bad news for Pedro.
Yeah, because now he can attack for the full blitz.
Exactly.
He has 1 multiplier in his hand. He can then load up.
Okay,
he goes for Tapu Koko though.
Instead, he might use his Ace Roller here to heal the Pikachu Zekrom. He also uses Energy Switch and an Energy to power up his other Zekrom, so his energies are pretty safe. Looks like he's using a Lily. He will be able to get the knockout here with the GX attack of Tapu Koko. And going down to just 3 prizes and having another Pikachu Zekrom in the back row. Pedro's GX attack gone, Pedro's hands seeming very weak, Pedro's board being basically nothing. And this looking very grim for Pedro here.
Yeah, if he takes out the knockout on Tapu Koko Jets, which we are expecting here, Pedro is down to his Jolteon that doesn't have any energy attached yet. His Absol, which definitely won't attack in this matchup here. So there's a Thunder Mountain actually. That's quite interesting.
He's replacing the Thunder Mountain. He's retreating, so he probably has a damage modifier.
Yes. Being
able to take the knockout with full blitz, he can accelerate 3 energies onto his Pikachu Zekrom. Oh yeah, he has to retreat for 3 energy because of the Absol, but he accelerates 3 energies onto his Pikachu Zekrom. Pedro having seemingly no way to punish this, and next turn Gustavo might be able to close out the series with this. If he
goes for the GX attack.
Yeah, exactly. If he gets a Guzma onto the Jolteon and a switching card, he will be able to take his last 3 prizes. But regardless of that, he's in a commanding position right now.
I think the only way to come back into this game is having that rescue stretcher, which we talked early in the game, getting his Tapu Koko back, loaded up with 2 energies, Electro Mountain there, then he can't use his GX attack again anymore. Yeah, that would be the game anyways, because he already used his GX attack, so it hardly I can hardly see any option for Pedro. He would need to get rid of this Zekrom. But how is he supposed to do this? He can attack with Jolteon this turn, but of course that's not an option for him because that would mean the game. So he probably needs something like a Zapdos, a 1 prize attacker that can attack here, chip away a little bit.
Alternatively, he could Guzma up something like the Tapu Koko and try to go for his retreating Jolteon into Absol, not being able to do anything else. If he has a Guzma, he might try to Guzma up the other Pikachu Zekrom, use the 30-30 snipe to maybe set up something, and yeah, he opts to go for the Tapu Koko instead. If he has a choice bet, he might be able to take this game in 3 turns, requiring to Gustavo to break off it meantime.
So 180, 200 damage.
200 and the active Tapu Koko is at 30. So if Gustavo is breaking completely, it would mean that Pedro might win soon. But yeah, he just ult nest balls for the Zera Aura. He has lots of energies left, yes, exactly. And he has the energy, he retreats, has the Jax attack.
Gustavo Wada from Brazil being our first finals here in Canada.
Yes, those Pikachu Zekroms putting in lots of work for him, being able to put on so much, to just deal so much damage, charge up so many energies, put so many threats into play. However, unfortunate game for Pedro, who just in the mid game stopped drawing into stuff, had very unfortunate hands and could not do what he wanted to do. Had to make unfortunate plays.
I think missing out the knockout there on the Pikachu Zekrom GX was crucial for Pedro, giving up the game for Gustavo.
We will go to a break. Yes, we will go to a break before the finals, and we will be back soon. So I hope you enjoyed it. And the finals will probably be Alessandro Camascoli vs Gustavo Wada. Those two have played before, and Gustavo has actually won the series. However, Alessandro claimed that he has a pretty good matchup against the Pikachu Zekrom deck, so I'm very curious to see how this plays out. It will probably be much more interesting than Alessandro versus Robin earlier. Well, anyways, quick break, and we will be back soon.